Okay, this is the read aloud for Feeding the World by Peter Winkler. It's a persuasive article. The writer makes a claim about an issue. This one's not going to be too hard to persuade people about, sharing food and feeding and subsidized farming and things like that. So the writer presents an argument either in favor or against an issue and supports the viewpoints with evidence. It's always a good idea to evaluate information to decide if the writer's reasoning is sound. Do you ever get in an argument with somebody and then all of a sudden none of their facts are accurate? It's very hard to argue with somebody like that. That's the best time to walk away. All right, how much food do people need? The average adult needs between 2,200 to 2,900 calories each day. We were just talking about needing nutrition and food in school. And it also requires a variety of vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients to stay healthy. For many people, having enough food to meet these requirements isn't a problem. For others, it is. Poverty, war, and poor farming practices are among the reasons that people go hungry. In some parts of the world, there are millions of hungry people. According to the United Nations, Asia has the largest number of underfed people, about 500 million. Africa comes next with about 200 million hungry people. Scientists, politicians, and citizens around the world disagree about how to solve the problem of world hunger. Scientists have discovered new technology to create more food, but many people disagree that it's a good method. The one thing everyone agrees on is that no one in the world should have to go hungry. The need for food. Scientist Florence Wambugu works with farmers in Kenya. Kenya is a country in East Africa. She helps farmers grow bigger and better crops. Wambugu is interested in finding simple ways to raise more food. In the past 10 years, Wambugu has spent a lot of time studying sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are a very important food in her part of Kenya. A virus kept attacking plants. It stopped the sweet potatoes from growing properly. Some farmers, says Wambugu, lost 3/4 of their crops because of the virus. Wambugu went to war against the virus. She searched for a weapon that could save the sweet potato, led to a laboratory in St. Louis, Missouri. Scientists there are studying new ways to create better plants. The lab's work focuses on genes. Genes are the chemical computer programs found in the cells of living things. Genes tell a plant to produce pink flowers. Genes tell an animal to grow black hair. Now scientists move genes from one living thing to another. That process is called genetic engineering. Wambugu spent 3 years in the lab. She created a sweet potato plant using the techniques of genetic engineering. This sweet potato plant could actually fight off the virus. Wambugu tested her research in Kenya. Her plants produce magnificent sweet potatoes. Wambugu believes that it's just the beginning. Genetically modified foods, she argues, could help farmers in poor countries grow desperately needed crops. What farmers need, Wambugu, is technology that is packed in the seeds. She believes expensive chemicals and machines aren't needed. Further, she argues that creating strong plants that farmers can raise simply, fewer people will go hungry. Scientists disagree about genetically modified food, and they question how to feed the world. And the question is how to feed the world is widely debated. Now read the different viewpoints, one pro and one con about this technology. So they're changing the makeup and the creation of the seed itself as if they were going to do that to a person or an animal. Some believe it's totally wrong, but they feel that it's better than adding chemicals and poisons and fertilizers to food to reproduce them faster or make them grow stronger. So you have both sides. Fortunately, we're not asking anybody for scientific data on this, but it's a good point to think about as you're eating food and buying food from the grocery store. On the next page, viewpoint number 1, pro. Supporters of genetic engineering argue that high-tech foods are a safe way to improve farming. They point to the fact that genetically modified corn and soybeans have been used in the United States since 1996, and they say that no one has suffered as a result. Florence Wambugu supports this view on the issue in the following editorial. So this is what it says. Is genetically modified food a good way to feed the world? Yes, new technology can help protect against hunger. I was one in a family of 9 children growing up in a small farm in Kenya Highlands. I learned firsthand about the enormous challenge of breaking the cycle of poverty and hunger in rural Africa. In fact, the reason I became a plant scientist was to help farmers like my mother. My mother sold the only cow our family owned to pay for my secondary education. This was a sacrifice because I, like most children in Kenya, was needed on the farm. I have since made it my mission to alert others to the urgent need for new technology in Africa. New technology can help protect against hunger, environmental damage, and poverty. African growers desperately need access to the best management practices and fertilizer. They need the better seeds and biotechnology to help improve crop production. Crop production is currently the lowest in the world per unit of land. Traditional agricultural farming practices continue to produce low yield, so they're not making a lot of food, and poor people. These practices will not be sufficient or good enough to feed the additional millions of people who will live on the continent 50 years from now. So the question becomes, why aren't these types of biotechnology applications more readily available to African farmers? The priority of Africa must be to feed its people and to sustain, which means support agricultural production and the environment. The people of Africa cannot wait for others to debate the merits of biotechnology. America and other developed nations must act now to allocate, which means give other countries, technology that can prevent suffering and starvation. It sounds like a great idea. It would help so many people. On the next page is the con. It talks about, no, genetically modified food is a risky form of technology. On the green section, it says some scientists and other critics of genetic engineering argue that we do not know the effects of this technology. We do not know how mixing genes will affect plants and animals in the future. Michael Block supports this view from the following editorial. Genetically modified food is the best way to feed the world. In my opinion, genetically modified food is a harmful and risky form of technology. I do not think we should genetically modify our food because it harms plants. Oh, he says it's not the best way. I think I read that as the best way. It's not the best way. I do not think we should genetically modify our food because it harms plants and animal life. It alters them. Genetically modified plants can accidentally mix with wild plants. When this happens, super weeds or giant weeds grow. Farmers need to use stronger forms of pesticides, so poisons, to kill super weeds. Stronger pesticides are bad for other plants and for the air we breathe. Animals also affected by genetically modified food. Some corn crops are major health risks to animals that eat them. A study done in the U.S. showed that 44% of caterpillars of the monarch butterfly, they died when they were fed large amounts of pollen or powder from the genetically modified corn. We know that genetically modified foods negatively affects plant and animal life. It's important to think about the risks the food poses to humans as well. So we're eating these foods that are killing simple bugs. Many experts caution against genetically modified foods. Ronnie Koumans of the Organic Consumers Association warns, we are rushing headlong into a new technology. We are courting disaster if we don't look before we leap. Furthermore, Dr. Mei-Wan Ho, a geneticist and physicist, cautions that genetic engineering is inherently dangerous because these genes are passed on and on and on. Since nearly half of the U.S. corn and soybean crops are now genetically modified, we must act now. We do not know the health effects of these foods. Until we do, it is everyone's interest to find better ways to feed the world. If you would like, in your own time, you may read more of this on this topic. Please check the food you buy from the grocery store and make healthy choices.